is that you have to own the land versus being a renter. So that doesn't mean you have to start your own business. That means if Facebook, no disrespect to them, but if Facebook or whomever, wherever you're starting to plant your seeds, decides to kick you off the platform or change your algorithm, you're not going to lose everything. That tech metaphor fits a lot of people who've lost their jobs too. I know people who I care about who had a side hustle in the back of their mind, and they're like, that's not going to make enough money, and I got my main job. Suddenly, that main job is gone, and then, as we say in Silicon Valley, they had to spin up this thing. Yeah. They're trying to hustle and make it work, but they didn't build their community yet. You see, it circles back to the beginning of our conversation, building your community before you have to, right? There's, I think of like Russ, I think of a few other folks who have had conversations about the music industry. And they'll say, my company, my business is recession proof. And that means that they, and the music business, it's way more than I do. People are used to getting that money on the road. Yeah. And then suddenly they're like, okay, I have to be at home. But if you own your catalog, if you're connected with your fans directly, you're not waiting for Universal or whomever to give you a cosign, to give you more money or whatever, because you're not on the road, then you're able to control that path. That's not saying that you have to quit your job or that if you get laid off that, everything's fine. It's saying always have these multiple streams going. Two thing, which I think Nipsey did brilliantly, is connect directly with your audience. Now, his hustle was actually similar to mine. We were actually doing it at the same time. I had a lot of his interviews bookmarked. Seriously, it was amazing stuff that he was talking about over the years, and I was really sad when he passed away because I considered him a peer, even though he's quite a bit younger than me, or was quite a bit younger than me. He ended up doing mixtapes, which is nothing original or nothing new. People have been doing mixtapes forever. Mixtapes are basically when you press and create your own CD or your own music, and you do it yourself, you DIY as they say, and you get it directly to the public. It could be from the trunk of your car, as E40 and Too Short used to do over on the West Coast, particularly in the Bay Area. Or it could be, today, it could be me having my own publishing imprint called Bring Your Worth and sending it directly to you. He did that, but he did that on a different level. 2013, he had a mixtape called Crenshaw. It was $100 for this mixtape. I can't remember how many songs were on it, but it ended up being like $10 a song. $100 for this mixtape. And he ended up having pop-up shops called Marathon, because it's supposed to be the long-distance spread. He ended up having pop-up shops all over the place, particularly in central Los Angeles. But he ended up doing it. I think he did a pop-up shop in New York, and Jay-Z came through and contributed and all that, so it had a lot of attention. But when you do it on that level, he was able to do that because he connected directly to his audience. And later on it came out, I didn't learn this until after he passed away, unfortunately. He used iPhone or phone technology to actually text and connect with his fans directly. I think he used email campaigns. He used all these different things to actually connect with his audience. So he didn't need the major label backing. Now, he actually worked with a major label with his last album. I think it was called Victory Lap. But that was a partnership. Because you look at any of his great interviews, just look up Nipsey Hussle, look up the interviews, particularly the one with Rap Radar over with Elliott Wilson and B-Dot. Shout out to them. They're great people. I've connected with them in the past. And he'll talk about how when he ended up working with these indie labels, he knew exactly what he was worth because he already connected with his fans. When you connect with your fans and you have what Seth Godin talks about as a minimal viable audience, then you can charge them certain rates because you know what experience that they want. For instance, for my indie book, the one that's coming out as we speak, Built From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World, this book is $25. It's $25 because it's an indie book, because there's more overhead with it because I'm not Penguin, so I can't drop the price. Shout out to Penguin, I actually have books with them, so no offense to them. But I don't have I'm not like a Walmart where I can just mass produce all of it and I can make it for the cheap. At the same time, people are buying, and thank you for the support, the folks that are already supporting Build From Now, because I can charge $25 for it. Because I'm talking directly to you through this channel that you're listening or watching me on, through the books and the writing that I've done, through the income that I have, through joindamon.me, which is my most essential asset. That's an email list where every week at Wednesday at 5:55 a.m., I send an email newsletter out and I connect with y'all, I chat with y'all, we chop it up, we have conversations. That's happened every week at this point for 5 years. Every week, Wednesday at 5:55 a.m. So when I come out with a new product, whether it's like the Bring Your Worth mug, which came out 2 years ago when Bring Your Worth came out, or the t-shirt with Built From Now that I'm wearing right now, you get at damonbrown.net. And when I do stuff like that, we already in communication. I don't need, no disrespect, a penguin or a random house to be the middleman for that. If you do that, then you're more in control of your destiny. There's nothing wrong with the big major deals. That's cool. I've taken my share of big deals. Nothing wrong with that. Understand though that the wider that gap is and the more middlemen or women there are in that process, the further you're going to be from your audience. Nipsey was really able to serve his audience directly. That's why within a short period of time, I want to say he died in his late 20s, maybe early 30s. In that short period of time, he's able to accumulate a lot of wealth and a lot of goodwill. As I mentioned, I was being disconnected from the very people that I serve. I like the spigot analogy because at any time they can turn up or turn down the amount of people you're connecting. Imagine like having a brick and mortar store, and then the city or the landlord that you're renting the storefront from or whatever, at any time they can go and say, okay, only 5 people can be on this sidewalk to walk by your place, and only like 1 or 2 people can actually come in the store. But if you pay me a little bit extra rent this month, if you pay a little bit more extra taxes to the mayor or to the city or to the state or whatever, then maybe you can have 10 people come walk past and 5 people come into the store. That's what's happening on social media. Think about that. These are things that we would not accept, we would not be comfortable with. I know people that have brick and mortar places, they would not go for this at all. But we go for that every single day with social media. And that's becoming a lot more intense as we become more independent. I know one of the telltale signs, which always gave me shivers, was probably about 5-6 years ago, shortly after I left Silicon Valley. And there would be new startup businesses. And this was it was after I became an entrepreneur, but before I started coaching. So I couldn't give advice like that because I wasn't quite mature enough. But I knew something was wrong because I would see people who would be starting up businesses and their website would be just their Facebook page. What if something happens to Facebook? Then suddenly you can't connect with your customers. I went through this experience. Luckily not that, because I started my business way earlier in the era where Facebook actually wasn't around when I started my business. So it wasn't even an issue like that. I'm glad that wasn't even a choice for me, as it was for a lot of folks that have been around for a decade or two. But my whole point is that there's a certain point where you're going to shift to owning your own property. So going from what I call a renter to being your own landlord, owning your own stuff. As I started to get off of Facebook, I beefed up my newsletter, and that's at joindamon.me. Joindamon.me is my newsletter. I do it it arrives every Wednesday at 5:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, because I'm over here in Vegas. Every Wednesday, now it's been like 5 or 6 years consistently, and I was doing it much more erratically before, but consistently for several years now. Y'all have to learn to expect that. No one's gonna turn off the email. If the email's being turned off, there's something very wrong. And it's something wrong with everybody's email. So that email is mine. You're getting that directly from me. If you have a problem, or if you really enjoy the message and the conversations that are happening at joindamon.me every Wednesday at 5:55 a.m., you can reply right back to me. There is no middleman or middlewoman or entity saying you can only access me so much. I can only access you so much. That's not even part of the conversation. Over the past year, my email list has doubled, thanks to y'all getting more involved with it. But part of it is because I'm spending less time on social media and more building my own community through joindamon.me. Another thing that I'm doing is, in a meta way, talking to you right now. If you're hearing this for the first time, or you're hearing it as a first run, as a premiere, then you're probably catching it on YouTube. My channel at youtube.com/BrownDamon. You can like, you can comment, you can share, and most importantly, you can subscribe. You can do that right now. And the YouTube guidelines are so broad that I don't have to worry about me being cut off from you. This is about as close as I can get, aside from building videos on my own website. This is as close as I can get to having my own channel. That's why I'm building up this YouTube community with you in mind.
That's why I'm spending hours and hours on content, having these conversations that are usually reserved for my books or for my one-on-one coaching sessions, which cost a few $100s an hour. I'm giving them to you so that we can build this community. I'm not depending on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or TikTok or Snapchat. I can keep going. You could be listening to this video or watching this video 10 years from now. Replace the names and it's gonna be the same conversation. I was around when MySpace was popping. I remember when Friendster started, which was around the time I was in grad school. Same conversations. So again, if Facebook isn't popping right now when you're listening to this, then just replace it with another name, right? You always want to be the landlord. I am the landlord of joindamon.me. I am the landlord of my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BrownDamon. Slight rental fee over to YouTube, but that's pretty much it. But definitely the joindamon.me, 100% mine. And it's about getting as close to ownership as possible so you don't have to worry about that. As I've talked about in other videos, particularly the ones about social media, there were times, particularly over the past year, where the conglomerate of Facebook, WhatsApp, it's not a city in Compton, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram were completely down. There were times when Twitter was completely down. There were times when LinkedIn is down. I actually enjoy LinkedIn quite a bit. There were times when those guys were down during a pandemic. My book came out, Built From Now. This book came out January 28th, 2021. What if I was launching a book only on social media and it happened to be the time when it was down? I would have lost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars worth of sales and opportunities. Instead, I had a launch on Instagram. I had a launch on Amazon Live, and you can check it out at amazon.com/shop/BrownDamon. I have an Amazon Live that I do there that comes over to this YouTube channel. I have my email list. They learned about it and pre-ordered it like 6 months before it hit the store. There's so many different ways that you can connect with people that have nothing or little to do with social media. That's you putting the keys, not even the keys, putting someone else in the driver's seat. Don't worry about the keys. I'm bad with analogies right now. Forgive me. Putting someone else in the driver's seat and saying, take me where I need to go. Instead, you need to be in the driver's seat. So even if you're working with social media, and there's nothing wrong with it, you can catch me on the social media. But I have my email list, I have this YouTube channel, I have my Amazon Live stuff, I have a lot of stuff that's going on that has nothing to do with leaning completely on third parties to connect with y'all.